June 3, 1942. 3 o'clock hours. Pearl Harbor, territory of Hawaii. The Pacific is quiet in a way that feels deceptive rather than calm. Night still holds the airfield, but the operational day has already begun. Aircraft are being fueled under blackout conditions. Charts are spread across tables in rooms without windows. Messages arrive by secure line, stripped of tone, compressed into coordinates and times. At the center of this system sits the United States Pacific Fleet, not yet recovered from its own near destruction 6 months earlier. The ships at anchor are not the fleet that existed in December. What remains is smaller, stretched, and operating under assumptions that are only partially formed. Across the ocean, the Imperial Japanese Navy is also operating under assumptions. More complete, more confident, and as it will turn out, more constrained than it appears. The coming battle will not begin with gunfire. It will begin with a timetable. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto's plan for Midway is already in motion. It has been for weeks. Its logic is internally consistent, based on lessons drawn from 6 months of uninterrupted success. Pearl Harbor, the Philippines, the Netherlands East Indies, the Indian Ocean raid, all have reinforced a single belief, that decisive battles can be engineered by forcing the enemy to respond. Midway is meant to be such a forcing function. The island is small, isolated, and strategically ambiguous. It offers no resources. It cannot sustain major operations. But it sits astride the American defensive perimeter, close enough to Hawaii to provoke action, far enough from the continental United States to limit reinforcement speed. Yamamoto does not need Midway itself. He needs the American carriers. The constraint shaping his decision is not tactical. It is temporal. Japan cannot fight a long war. Its industrial base cannot replace carriers, trained air crews, or fuel reserves at American rates. The oil flowing from the Dutch East Indies must sustain operations across thousands of miles. Every sortie burns fuel that cannot be easily replaced. Every pilot lost takes years to train, and those years are not available. Time is the enemy. The solution, as Yamamoto sees it, is concentration and deception. Split the fleet to confuse American intelligence. Draw the carriers out. Destroy them in a single, overwhelming engagement. End the war before industrial imbalance becomes decisive. It is a rational plan. It is also an irreversible one. By early May, the Japanese combined fleet is committed. Carrier divisions are assigned. Battleships sail. Logistics ships disperse. The Aleutian diversion is approved, pulling assets northward. The fleet is now too large, too dispersed, and too fuel-bound to turn back without revealing intent. The option to wait is already gone. On the American side, the constraints are different. The U.S. Navy has 3 operational fleet carriers in the Pacific. One of them, Yorktown, was heavily damaged at Coral Sea. Under normal circumstances, she would be out of action for months. Her flight deck was torn open. Structural damage reached deep into the hull. But time is not available. At Pearl Harbor Navy Yard, repair crews work around the clock. The estimate is 90 days. Admiral Chester Nimitz gives them 72 hours. Temporary patches are applied. Compromises are accepted. Some damage is left unaddressed, logged for later that may never come. Yorktown will sail because there is no alternative. This is not confidence. It is necessity. The American industrial machine has not yet reached full output. New carriers are under construction, but steel laid does not win battles. The Pacific Fleet must fight with what it has now, not what it will have later. Distance is the dominant constraint. Midway is over 1,100 miles from Pearl Harbor. Aircraft range determines everything. Once carriers commit east or west, recovery options narrow. A damaged ship cannot easily withdraw without exposing itself. Fuel consumption increases with speed. Every knot burned now limits endurance later. Nimitz knows this. His staff knows it. But the information they have is incomplete. What they possess instead is something the Japanese do not know exists. Station HYPO, Pearl Harbor's cryptanalytic unit, has been reading portions of Japanese naval communications. Not cleanly. Not completely. But enough. They know an operation is coming. They know the objective is designated AF. They believe AF is Midway. They test this assumption with a deception of their own, a false message about water shortages on the island. The Japanese respond by referencing water shortages at AF. The identification is confirmed. This is not full knowledge. It is partial clarity. Crucially, it does not reveal the full Japanese order of battle, nor the precise timing of the carrier strike. It does not disclose the Aleutian diversion, nor the dispersion of forces across multiple task groups. What it provides is a narrowing of possibilities. Nimitz must decide whether to defend Midway directly or to position his carriers northeast of the island, out of sight, hoping to ambush the Japanese striking force. If he guesses wrong, his carriers will be out of position, too far away to intervene or too exposed to withdraw. There is no room for correction once the aircraft are launched. The American plan is therefore built on a single assumption, that Japanese carriers will strike Midway first, revealing themselves. If that assumption fails, the war in the Pacific may end in a single morning. The carriers Enterprise and Hornet sail first, followed by the hastily repaired Yorktown. Their crews are not rested. Air groups have been reconstituted with replacement pilots unfamiliar with their squadrons. Some have never landed on a carrier at sea. Training time has been sacrificed for presence. This choice cannot be undone. By late May, all 3 carriers are at sea. Radio silence is enforced. Navigation is done by dead reckoning and celestial fixes. Weather is unpredictable. Fuel margins are tight. Meanwhile, Yamamoto's fleet advances eastward in carefully scheduled phases. The 1st Air Fleet, under Vice Admiral Chuchi Nagumo, carries the striking power. 4 fleet carriers. Over 240 aircraft. The most experienced naval aviators in the world. But Nagumo's carriers are operating at the end of a logistical chain that stretches back to Japan. Replenishment options are limited. Sortie generation depends on deck cycles that cannot be easily altered without creating congestion and delay. Carrier warfare is mechanical as much as tactical. Aircraft must be armed, fueled, spotted, launched, recovered, rearmed. Each cycle consumes time and deck space. Any disruption cascades forward. Nagumo's instructions are clear but conditional. Strike Midway. If American carriers are detected, prepare a second strike against them. If not, rearm for a second strike on the island. This conditionality introduces a decision point that will matter later. It is not a flaw in planning. It is an attempt to preserve flexibility. But flexibility itself is constrained by time. At dawn on June 4th, Japanese aircraft launched toward Midway. The attack achieves tactical success. Installations are damaged. Aircraft destroyed on the ground. But the island is not neutralized. Anti-aircraft fire is intense. Losses are higher than expected. This creates a delay. Nagumo must decide whether to launch a second strike to finish the job or hold aircraft in reserve in case American carriers appear. He orders rearming for a second strike on Midway. Bombs are removed. Torpedoes are brought up from magazines. Aircraft are shifted on crowded hangar decks. Fuel lines are active. Ordnance crews work in confined spaces, surrounded by volatile materials. This is standard procedure. It is also a moment of vulnerability. At 0740, a Japanese scout plane reports American ships sighted. The report is delayed. Its wording is ambiguous. It does not immediately specify carriers. Nagumo hesitates. He reverses the rearming order. Bombs are brought back up. Torpedoes are returned. Aircraft are shifted again. Deck cycles are disrupted. Time is lost. The hangar decks become congested with fueled, armed aircraft. This is not indecision in the psychological sense. It is the friction of operating within constraints. Nagumo is trying to preserve the option to strike either target effectively. But each reversal narrows the margin for error. Meanwhile, American aircraft are already in the air. They are not coordinated. Torpedo squadrons arrive separately without fighter cover. They are slow, vulnerable, and suffer catastrophic losses. They achieve nothing tactically. But they impose a cost. Japanese combat air patrol fighters are drawn low. Fuel is burned. Attention is fixed downward. Recovery of returning Midway strike aircraft is delayed. The deck is not clear. At 10:20, American dive bombers arrive from altitude. The timing is not planned. It is accidental, shaped by navigational error and delay. But the conditions they encounter are the result of everything that has come before. Japanese carriers are in the middle of a recovery and rearming cycle. Aircraft are on deck. Fuel hoses are out. Ordnance is exposed. The window is brief. It will not reopen. Within minutes, 3 Japanese carriers are hit. Fire spread rapidly. Damage control is overwhelmed. The ships are doomed. The fourth carrier, Hiryu, launches a counterstrike that cripples Yorktown. But by the afternoon, Hiryu is located and destroyed as well. The point of no return has already passed. It passed not when the bombs hit, but when the fleet committed to a plan that could not adapt to partial information, dispersed forces, and rigid timetables. Japan loses 4 fleet carriers and their veteran air crews. America loses 1 carrier. The imbalance that Yamamoto sought to prevent is now locked in. By the afternoon of June 4, 1942, the tactical picture is already decided, even if its meaning is not yet fully understood by either side. Smoke columns rise from the ocean surface. The Japanese carriers Akagi, Kaga, and Soryu are burning uncontrollably. Damage control parties fight fires they cannot reach, on ships never designed to survive this kind of internal ignition. Aviation fuel feeds the flames. Ordnance detonates below decks. Command structures fragment as communications fail. Vice Admiral Nagumo transfers his flag. Orders are issued, then contradicted by circumstance. Escorts attempt to screen dying carriers while also preparing for a surface engagement that will never occur. Yamamoto, far to the west aboard the battleship Yamato, receives fragmented reports. The scale of the loss is not immediately clear. Japanese naval doctrine assumes resilience at the operational level. Fleets have absorbed damage before and continued fighting. But this assumption is based on battleship warfare, not carrier aviation. Carriers do not degrade gradually. They exist as systems. When the system fails, it collapses. By nightfall, 3 of Japan's 4 fleet carriers assigned to the operation are beyond recovery. The fourth, Hiryu, will not survive the night. The immediate question facing Yamamoto is whether the battle can still be salvaged. In theory, his surface forces remain intact. Battleships and cruisers still outnumber the Americans. If contact can be made, a night surface action might yet inflict serious damage. Japanese crews are trained for it. Doctrine favors it. But distance intervenes. The American carriers are withdrawing eastward, operating under strict radio silence. Their exact position is unknown. Fuel states are uncertain. Aircraft losses limit scouting range. To pursue blindly risks running out of fuel without ever forcing engagement. Here, the original constraint reasserts itself. Japan cannot afford attrition. Yamamoto orders the operation terminated. Forces withdraw westward. Midway is abandoned as an objective. This decision, like those before it, is logical. It is also final. The Japanese combined fleet will never again operate with this concentration of experienced carrier aviation. The loss is not only ships. It is trained air crews, maintenance teams, deck officers, and command experience that cannot be replaced on the same timeline. Carrier hulls can be built. Aviators cannot be accelerated beyond human limits. Training pipelines become bottlenecks. The American response unfolds more slowly. In the days following the battle, damage assessments are conservative. Yorktown is believed lost, then found afloat, then lost again to submarine attack. The Navy does not celebrate. It inventories what remains. Enterprise and Hornet return to Pearl Harbor. Aircraft losses are severe. Squadrons are under strength. Pilots are exhausted. But the ships are operational. This matters more than appears at first glance. Within weeks, industrial output begins to assert itself. New carriers approach completion. Aircraft production accelerates. Pilot training programs expand, accepting higher attrition rates in exchange for volume. America's constraint is not training time alone. It is organizational learning. Midway exposes flaws in American carrier doctrine. Poor coordination between torpedo and dive bomber squadrons. Inadequate fighter escort. Communication failures between air groups and carrier command. These are not fatal flaws. They are correctable. And correction is now possible because time has been gained. The strategic significance of Midway is not that it annihilates Japanese naval power. It does not. Japan retains formidable forces. But it halts expansion and freezes the operational initiative. From this point forward, Japan will react. Every major operation must account for the possibility of American carrier intervention. Every commitment of force risks exposing irreplaceable assets. Caution enters planning not as fear but as calculation. That calculation tightens constraints further. At Guadalcanal, only 2 months later, the consequences of Midway become visible. Japanese forces fight fiercely, tactically outperforming American units in surface engagements and night actions. But carrier support is inconsistent. Air cover is limited. Logistics are strained. Reinforcements arrive piecemeal. Each decision is shaped by the absence of the carriers lost at Midway. Fuel shortages force ships to operate at reduced speed. Pilots fly longer missions from distant bases, increasing fatigue and losses. Training standards are quietly lowered to maintain numbers. The spiral begins. On the American side, the same months produce a different effect. Losses are absorbed. Procedures are revised. Command relationships are clarified. Radar integration improves interception rates. Carrier task forces learn to operate as integrated systems rather than independent units. None of this happens instantly. But none of it would be possible without Midway. The battle creates a buffer of time in which learning can occur without existential risk. By 1943, the disparity becomes structural. Japan launches new carriers, but without sufficient trained air crews to fill them. Sortie rates decline. Accidents increase. Operational tempo slows. America launches carriers faster than they can be sunk. Aircraft models improve. Pilot replacement pools deepen. Losses are accepted as part of a system designed to endure them. The war's outcome is no longer in question, only its duration. Looking back, it is tempting to assign the result of Midway to chance, luck, or individual brilliance. Dive bombers arriving at the right moment. Scouts missing signals. Decisions made under pressure. But those moments matter only because of what preceded them. Because plans were already constrained. Because options had already narrowed. Because industrial realities had already set boundaries that no tactical success could escape. Japan's decision to seek a decisive battle was not reckless. It was rational under the constraints it faced. But rational decisions made within shrinking margins can still produce catastrophic outcomes. America did not win Midway because it was flawless. It won because it could survive being imperfect. That difference, between a system that must be right and one that can recover, was decisive. And after June 1942, it could no longer be reversed.